My name is Ravi Brambad. I'm the Director for Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the college. And with me, Shiroy, Aspandiar.
Close.
Try it.
Shiroy Aspandiar.
Ah, man. It's spelled with A-S, you know?
Yes,
S?
last name, yes, A-S. Yeah.
All right. Shiroy, co-founder of One Jump and also co-founder for Impact Hub Houston.
Got it.
Got it. And, all right, there we go. Students are joining in.
Awesome.
Hey.
Good.
So, guys, as you're logging in, there is a chat section on the side. Feel free to ask any questions when appropriate. And if I'm able to see it on the screen, we'll go ahead and try to answer it. But really, the goal for tonight, so there we go, 3, 4. Okay, they're all jumping in.
Good. Wonderful.
So, this guy is no stranger to you. So, Shiroy is your teacher, and I understand today, our campuses are closed. But we also have some deadlines, and we didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of this great education, right? So Shiroy has been doing this for a while now. So feel free to kind of give us a quick background
Sure.
to you.
Yeah.
Before you started One Jump, there was a dean, and probably something before that. So share that with us.
Yeah. So yeah. I began my career actually as an educator in Houston ISD in 2010 through Teach for America. I taught for 4 years.
Wow.
AP Psychology, AP World History, and I created a class actually called The Examined Life, like blended philosophy and sociology and science. It was a lot of fun. But during that time too, I also realized that my students lacked access to quality enrichment opportunities, specifically summer programs, after-school programs, and others. And we knew that there were thousands of opportunities throughout the country, but a lot of my students didn't know about them. And I kind of call that like the social capital gap. They weren't exposed in the same way that their more affluent peers were to experiences that could really change their life or give them a greater sense of possibility. And that's what we sought out to do with One Jump. So One Jump is a web platform that aggregates and curates thousands of opportunities throughout the country, and we help students find, apply to, and fund quality enrichment opportunities. And it's live, and you can go and sign up right now. And we began that process in the classroom because we identified a very clear problem, and that was sort of where I began my social entrepreneurial journey. But for a long time, I thought I wanted to be a principal. So instead of going really full-time in my social venture, I sort of began working on it part-time. And pursued a master's in school leadership, and then came back to Houston and worked as a dean of a high school, Camp Houston High School, and that's like sort of like an assistant principal role. And realized an opportunity to pursue my true passion in social entrepreneurship, and took One Jump full time, and stumbled into Impact Hub along the way while co-founding One Jump. So.
Okay, so in your story, you've used a lot of words that I like to get, break them down a little bit, right? So
Sure,
we'll start. So you said being a principal, that's something you wanted to do, but then you said I've started a social entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah.
So wait, start explaining those words in the layman term here.
Sure.
What does it mean?
Principal, right? People know principal.
Sure.
Like it's a director.
So the head of the school. Yeah.
Right. So that one I probably don't need to provide too much context on. But social enterprise is tricky and it's confusing, right? So are you asking me to help to explain what a social enterprise is?
So how is One Jump, .org, the website, a social enterprise? Like what makes it? I mean, do you not make money, or do you not have ambition to make?
No, we do. I think that's a common misconception about social enterprises, is that they're charities or that they're all nonprofits. In our case, One Jump is a nonprofit, but for a long time we toyed with the idea of actually being a for-profit or creating a hybrid corporate structure too, which is having a for-profit and sort of an adjacent nonprofit as well. But social enterprises, what makes them different than traditional enterprises is that they're focusing on achieving either a triple bottom line, like an economic, social, and environmental return or good, or other people have called it like the 4 Ps: profit, people, purpose, and planet. And really, traditional ventures are really only focused on generating a return, generating a profit, whereas social ventures, more often than not, the thing that really distinguishes them is that they're impact first. So they're primarily focused around solving
The
a social
society.
problem,
Yeah.
a social problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're also thinking about a few other things too. One is they're thinking about scale. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I take what I've built and how do I replicate it? How do I grow it? How do I achieve more impact?
Mm-hmm.
They're also thinking about measurement. So
Mm-hmm.
they're actually refining and making sure that they're actually doing real good or any sort of meaningful good.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, their impact first.
Okay.
So I could give you a couple of examples.
Yeah, but
before
before you do that, I'd like to now compare that to traditional entrepreneurship. Just
Yeah.
I mean, how what is the meaning of entrepreneurship in your words, and then the meaning of social. I mean, you've given a very nice answer there, but point out the differences. I mean, we care about profit in both.
It's a good question. So I think that you could have a traditional venture that paints itself as a social venture pretty easily. But let's just take an example of like Lime, the scooter company, right? You've seen them with like the electrical chargers, and they sort of throw their scooters on the street. Have you seen those things?
I've seen that in California recently.
Okay, yeah. So take Lime, a scooter company. They're a scooter startup. They could paint a picture in which they're solving a major social problem. Maybe it's around increasing access to transit that's not cars, that reduces carbon emission. Something like that. Right?
But they're not selling the scooters, basically. They're not a scooter company selling scooters. They're a transportation company enabling mobility.
Sure, and you could paint yourself as a social venture if you want.
Yeah.
But like that I would not call a social venture. That I would call a venture. They're in the business of growing a massive platform of people who charge and people who access these scooters to get around with the purpose of generating a profit. They probably want to IPO and be a very successful commercial company. The social component, the social mission at the heart of what they're doing, I would say is not really clear. But most Silicon Valley ventures, most ventures in general, want to paint a picture of how they're changing the world, making the world better. And so in that vantage point, many people are trying to paint themselves as a social venture because it's smart, it's good marketing, it's positive.
But that doesn't mean they are.
It doesn't mean that you're really solving a specific problem that impacts real people who are suffering or struggling. I think that's the difference with a social venture. A social venture is going after the heart of a problem, and they're trying to leverage entrepreneurship, business models, and the skill set of an entrepreneur to solve that social problem. Some of them are for-profit, some of them are non-profit, but they're taking that entrepreneurial lens and they're directing it at a real measurable problem.
Okay, so if I take everything you've said and try to put it in so I'm a traditional marketer, right? I'm a business guy. I've done this as a for profit. So I'm going to try to put it in paraphrase what you just said.
Sure.
So traditional entrepreneurship or just entrepreneurship is about adding value to the customer.
Okay.
Right? You're giving something to the customer, your user. But then social entrepreneurism is about adding value for the society. Would that be something?
Yeah, I think that's a really good macro way to think about it. It's not just about the customer, it's about the environment. It's about people. It's about society as a whole. And it's really targeted to solving a real problem, not something that is sort of like a decorated or well dressed up problem.
So the shoe company who's going to give away 10% of their to someone in need is still a regular business. They're in the shoe of selling shoes to the customer.
Yes.
But they're not necessarily improving how the shoe is made or anything that's better for the environment. Then they're not a social entrepreneur.
Right, that's a perfect example.
What other examples? Come on, you said you had some other ones in mind.
Well, actually, I was going to talk about like Tom's, for example. Right, Tom's. There's a question like when Tom's came out with the buy one get one free, people thought, wow, this is a company that's like really.
Help me. This is.
Have you heard of Tom's?
The GPS company? That's Tom.
No. Tom's like the shoe company.
Oh, God, it is the shoe company. Okay.
TMS, yeah,
okay.
So they had a process where they would buy one. If you bought one, they would give one to a person in need.
Okay.
And so I think there's a question, right? Does that count as a social venture? Or, for example, if you are a shoe company and then you give 10% of your profits away, is that make it a social venture? I would kind of argue no. I think that's a clever marketing strategy, and I wouldn't also fault you for it. I wouldn't say. I think if we get into the debate about who is social entrepreneur-y enough, that doesn't move society along a continuum of better business, right? So if you're at a 1 on your impact, I think that the role of, where I would hope entrepreneurship goes in general is to move you to a 4. If you're at a 4, move you to a 7. There are ways that businesses can generate more impact. So I don't want to paint these companies as bad for wanting to give a portion of profit away, but they're not solving a social problem, right? Like they're commercially selling shoes to people who have the ability to buy them, and then part of what they do is they give away the shoes to people who need it. Their focus as a core of their company is not solving the problem for the individual.
Right, access to shoes,
right? And I think that distills the difference between a social venture and a traditional company.
Okay, so if I were to
this is an opinion, by the way, it should be stated that there's a debate about what constitutes a social venture, and we're co-crafting it. We're in an era where we're trying to define and really understand what that looks like.
And if I were to, I like paraphrasing so it helps me better, but I think the way I would look at it is to say, is it social responsibility, which is the item that every big business is looking at, right? Because customers are looking for who's going to do better with my money and I get the product, right? So companies that say we're like Toyota, we're green. After the car is done, everything goes back into the world, everything degrades. So that's social responsibility. This is social entrepreneurism or social venture. How it starts is very different. Yes. So, does that mean that every social venture is a not for profit?
No.
Explain. In your opinion, what is the difference, right? And then we have so many students, and we've got students watching this right now, but there'll be students who will be taking part in the pitch competition, the bold ideas pitch competition. And they may not have a clear understanding of, assuming every social innovation or social venture is a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
And that is such a common understanding here. Can you clear that up for us, especially our students?
They're not. I think that some of the more scalable ventures, too, may require venture capital dollars to be able to grow and achieve the large impact that they need. There are plenty of companies that I think are solving social problems.
Do you know of any?
Yeah, I actually think that you could categorize maybe many companies are tackling renewable energy. I would constitute as like a social venture. Many companies are innovating in healthcare. I think if you're really focusing on a healthcare-related issue, and you're a for-profit business, I would constitute that also as most of them could be constituted as a social venture too.
Nice. Okay.
I'm trying to think of like other examples as well.
Like a for-profit in town that you're aware of. You're with.
I think that Group Raise could be an example of a social venture. Like they've really.
What do they do?
So Group Raise is a company. Have you heard of them?
I have. I know the owner, but I still want everybody to know. So
I think Group Raise is interesting, and I think that they actually get really are really interesting as thinking about them as a social venture. They're a for-profit technology company, and what they do is they pair up restaurants who have downtime during the day, and they help them match them with nonprofits that then go into those restaurants and then book those spaces for some sort of donation activity. What do you call it? Like a fundraiser. Sorry. So they do a fundraiser there, and they're going to get a % of the profits. So what it does is it allows individual nonprofits the ability to be able to raise a bit more money by doing an activity that they would already do, like go out and get some food, and then it solves a problem also for the restaurants too.
And the nonprofits.
And the nonprofits, exactly.
The fundraiser, sorry, for the nonprofit. Yeah.
So it's a technology company. It's highly scalable. You can track measurement. You can see that we're actually helping nonprofits generate more money. Now the question would be is is it specifically geared towards solving a social problem? And I feel like I'm not sure. I don't understand exactly the mindset of the founders, but to me that would be an example of a technology company that's generating a social good. And you could categorize them as a social venture. They're a for-profit company. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's solving a problem for the restaurant owner.
Solving a problem for the restaurant owner.
But the restaurant owner is not necessarily their user or their customer.
And what you find with a lot of social ventures is that your end user is not the person who pays. And that's completely fine. Like for OneJump, for example, our end user is we want to support a student who's like an underrepresented student or an underprivileged student. The person who pays ultimately for us is going to be donors, foundations, corporates, and schools.
Okay.
And not our students. So I think more often than not for social ventures.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah. For most social ventures, your end user may have zero or very little willingness or ability to pay. And
Yeah.
that's fine, but you as a social venture need to not. I think that there's a huge focus on like a sustainable revenue stream for social ventures, so that you're not constantly trying to find the next donation, performing the next gala for you to be able to do the work that you want to do. I feel like that's really a big core of what drives a social venture, is that you can stand on your own 2 feet. A nonprofit can do that as well as a for-profit can too. A for-profit has to. Yeah.
Nice. So look, we've got about 12 people watching us. If you guys have any questions for Shiroy about business, the entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, just go ahead and put it in the chat, and as it comes up, I'll put it up. But then, Shiroy, I'd like to know a little bit, as it's coming in, I'd like to know a little bit more about this trip that you recently took. What was that about with Impact Hub Houston?
Yes. I did a poor job earlier of explaining like what Impact Hub is. So I was like,
so let's do that.
It's a long story. Yeah.
As we're getting, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So Impact Hub is a global network of about 100 different hubs across the world that are locally rooted but globally connected. We're talking Jakarta, Shanghai, Johannesburg, Munich, Athens, Montreal, Houston, Honolulu, Sao Paulo, and most recently we had our global gathering in Florianopolis. And what these hubs are, these hubs are places that are dedicated to driving social innovation, social impact, and entrepreneurship in their local communities and helping them get connected to a global network of entrepreneurs. So we have about 16,000 plus people in our network right now who are trying to build a better world through innovation. And so this could look like a solo entrepreneur all the way out to a built-out team. And not every single person inside of an Impact Hub is an impact-first entrepreneur, but the people that are a part of our network want to build this better world collaboratively together. And we're coming to Houston, where we've been running programming for quite some time, and we're actually we have our physical space that's popped up, and we went to our global gathering in order to learn, to build community, and just really experience the power of what it looks like to be in a room full of people all across the world who are trying to create a better future, and specifically who are trying to solve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has. So we're actually an affiliated partner with the UN globally, that as a recognized partner that drives innovation around the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
So 17 Sustainable Development Goals, things like water, power, energy.
Exactly.
Education.
Like reducing poverty, access to quality education, reducing sort of gender inequity. Yeah, there's 17 specific goals. I don't have them all mapped out in my head, but yes. And
I was going to ask you to map them out.
So 17.
I don't know.
17, you could call them challenge areas or problem areas or goals. And Impact Hub is one of many partners that's driving towards creating that world in which those problems are lessened and their impact on society is decreased. We have healthier societies as a result.
Okay, so I'm a student at a college or a university, and even a high school. And, we have these global problems that are defined by the UN. They need to be tackled in order for the world to be better. Simply said, right?
Yeah.
And things like water. So if I have a solution, or I have an idea, right? Let's say we have a solution where the way we get our water, maybe you have an idea that says, well, we should be collecting from the rain and using it and purifying it, so we don't have to rely on so much piping in the city to bring us clean water for drinking, whatever, right? I don't know. I'm throwing out ideas.
Sure.
They could actually pitch an idea like that, and if they've thought enough through, they can actually have access to partners who can support. But what does someone like Impact Hub offer to that individual with nothing more than an idea? Like what? Yeah. How do they come to you? Like what do they do?
Yeah. So I should back up in saying that it was extremely daunting to try anything entrepreneurial with my background.
Yeah.
Like I was a philosophy and political science major. I had no business acumen. I was an educator, and I was close and proximate to a problem. Right?
Yeah.
And then I went through an accelerator at Rice University, called Valspark, and that's where I learned a lot of the business acumen and business terminology and whatnot. So going back to your original question, but my point is
to get into that. I'm sorry, I just need to know.
Yeah.
How easy or how hard was it to be part of that accelerator?
I don't know at the time what the acceptance rate is or whatnot.
Did it cost a lot?
No, we actually got paid to be a part of Alice Park.
Really?
Yeah, we got stipended, yeah.
Okay, is this through an ISD or school?
It's actually through Rice University's Summer Accelerator program. So
Okay.
we were in class 2. It was like an early
So it
prototype.
just started, yeah.
Now it's like class, I think, 6 or 7 or something like that.
Okay.
Carrie Smith is, I still believe, the managing director
Uh-huh.
of Alice Park.
Right.
And what they did was they basically taught us the principles of entrepreneurship. And I wanted to...
Did you have to be a Rice student?
They do require a Rice affiliation, and 2 of our team members were Rice graduates.
Okay.
So I'm not.
No, that's
Not
fine.
quite that smart.
But this is good to know, because this means is that as a student and at a high school or a university other than Rice, if you have a team
Yeah.
and you're affiliated, you have access to this to get this.
Right.
But if you don't, then I'm sure there are other means as well.
Yeah, I mean...
Rice is the top notch, right? But
Yeah, but I mean, University of Houston also has Red Labs Accelerator program. I think this HCC has its different pitch competitions that you can invent-a-thon, and the bold ideas pitch is coming up.
Right.
These are opportunities for you to be able to test out like your idea. But going back to your original question of
Yeah, go
how
ahead.
does Impact Hub, how would Impact Hub support you?
Mhm.
The reason why I brought that up in the first place is because I want people to know that you don't need entrepreneurship training to start. You don't need to understand the buzzwords.
You don't need a business degree.
You don't need a business degree. I think what you really need is a thorough understanding of the problem, or the willingness to be able to go and look at the problem more closely and learn and gather information. But in terms of like understanding certain buzzwords or learning what MVP is or whatever that stuff is you might have heard,
Yeah.
it's not important. So if a person had an idea for a water solution and they came to Impact Hub, what they would find is a dedicated group of other entrepreneurs who might be working on similar problems, the supporters who might have business acumen in areas like marketing or accountancy who want to help you, and then finally a dedicated team that understands the mentor landscape, the ecosystem resources, who could say, hey, Ravi, you have this idea for clean water. We think that you should be talking to so-and-so. Or you should consider applying for this program. Or, hey, did you know there's this grant that's available for you? Or let's take this...
So like this community.
It's all about the community. That's what I think
Nice.
entrepreneurs have this idea, be like the maverick individual who goes it alone and finds a holy grail and achieves stardom as an entrepreneur, and that's not how it works, right? Entrepreneurs need ecosystem support. Entrepreneurs need people to coach them, and entrepreneurs need feedback. And having a really solid community is what I felt like I really needed while I was going through and trying to co-found One Jump. And I was told pretty frequently, it's like, leave Houston. It's like, people don't understand social enterprise here.
Right, done like that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. People don't understand social enterprise here. You should go elsewhere. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate Houston that social enterprise is a thing. It's not a fad. More millennials and more young individuals who are going to want to figure out ways to do good and make a profit, right? And that's the way of the future.
Right?
And make a living, right? So this is something that I think is going to be the future of entrepreneurship, truly. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to support that individual with the specific skills and resources that they need, because they are different. Like social entrepreneurs are fundamentally different because there are certain business cases that might require that you trade on your values or trade on your mission or trade on your impact. And that's when being thoughtful about things like corporate structure, things like how you actually measure and designate impact. I mean, for example, the benefit corporation structure, hardly anybody knows about it, but it bakes into your company bylaws non-negotiables that are social. Right, so certain things that are part of your shareholder agreement, right? That's social. There's no structure that's quite like that, right? So if you're worried that maybe the founders leave the business and you get new shareholders in who might corrupt or bastardize your mission, the benefit corporation structure prevents against that. Like, who knows that? Not too many people are talking about that. Right. So these are the kind of things that we can educate Houston about and let people know about along their journey about how they can do well and do good. Because it does not need to be one or the other.
So what I've heard, and I paraphrase it, right? So what I've heard so far is you don't have to have a business degree to be able to think about an idea, come to this community of supporters and peers who can help you move that idea further. Now, what about funding? Like, is that something you're working on? I mean, we have this competition that's got 20 grand we're giving away.
You should send some of that over.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I mean, if you're a student with an
Yeah.
idea, here's a community to take it to, and then think about. I mean, this is just one, right? Rice has its business bank competition, and so many others in town are looking for opportunities to fund in good, well thought out models and ideas.
I'm in agreement. Yeah, like Houston has a lot of resources. I feel like they just need to be well organized.
Yeah.
And in some cases they are. But for, I think, like if you're maybe a nonprofit, you might be able to find individual philanthropic capital if you're able to navigate the system for Houston. But if you're thinking about maybe doing a social venture that's for profit, where would you start? And I think that's the problem that Houston's really that we're trying to solve with Impact Hub Houston is supporting you. Whether you're nonprofit or for profit doesn't matter for us. But being impact first is something that we care about. Or if at least you're not impact first, you want to support the people that are impact first. You care about building that better world, and you want to do it together.
But you don't have a currently or
like a funding source for
a
other
funding
ventures?
source for impact.
We're working on that. The very first thing that's most important for us is to build that community. Then on top of building that community is that layers of support, coaching, mentorship, super important for us. Programming, super important for us. And then finally, organizing the capital. Right, the capital I think needs to be able to see that, hey, there are good deals here, there are good ventures here, there are things that I would like to invest in or donate to, and so that's sort of the pathway that we're going on. But it's absolutely important and vital that we have resources, specifically financial capital, that's ready for entrepreneurs that are willing to dedicate their lives to these problems.
Okay, so we had some couple of questions. I kind of didn't do a great job of moderating them, but I wanted to just pick on one. So. You know, a lot of the students watching, they're also international students, right? So they have this education in the U.S. in Houston. They learn. They're part of our community. They go volunteering everywhere. They learn a lot. Now they're ready to do something about this. Now they've got a mission. As they head back to their home countries, what should they be thinking about? Because it doesn't matter, like you said, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a business degree. You could be qualified in anything. But where do they go, and why should they be thinking about this?
So for the second part of the question, why should they be thinking about social entrepreneurship? I think it's partly because our world needs thoughtful leaders, people who are dedicated to solving these problems. They need innovative thinkers, and they need people who are willing to think differently about how to solve them, how to solve these challenges. So if there's a passion, if there's an affinity in your heart for something that you want to work on, and you just don't feel fully empowered on how to do it, that's okay. Like at least you've identified that you care about this, and now the skills and the tools you can find, right? You can. There's so many resources online that you can just probably learn everything you need to online. Seriously, YouTube and Google, you can learn pretty much every single concept you need to. But going back to your question also about, let's say they go back to their country and they're trying to figure out what resources they can leverage in their community. I think it really depends upon the country and the city that you're in.
Sure.
Right? So in some cases, there might be government funding to be able to support the work that you want to do. In other cases, there might be large NGOs. In other cases, it might be foreign or international foundations who have a vested interest in your country, and they want to be able to fund innovative projects and ideas. So I think really it depends upon partly your local context, but that's sort of the beauty about Impact Hub, is that Impact Hub is in many of these cities across the world, or is close, and they are places that are organizing those resources, that thought leadership too, about how to navigate and plug into the systems locally and globally. So I'm not saying like get an Impact Hub membership in where you are, but like look for the center.
Does it cost to be a member?
Yeah. So we also have a sustainable revenue model too.
Sure.
And so typically most Impact Hubs get their funding from diverse sources. One of them is membership.
Okay.
But what I meant ultimately was find that location or that organization locally that is also being thoughtful about connecting. Convening different stakeholders who want to support social enterprise or social problem solving.
And if you don't have one, could you start one?
Of course you could. Yeah, you could.
How? Is there a website they go to start the next one?
If you want to start an Impact Hub, sure.
Yeah, if it's not in your city, what do you do? I mean, how do you...
Well, you could launch one, 100%. What they really care about is having strong local leadership. That matters because local leaders are able to create a movement in their city around making the city better
Mm-hmm.
through entrepreneurship. So having like a local founding team is important, and yeah, they get bids all the time to launch different impact hubs across the world. So if there really is, if the individual's thinking more about like how do I support this kind of development in my community,
Mm-hmm.
you of course could. And I'm not saying that impact hub is the only way or the best way to do it. There are different ways to do it, but
Okay.
I do think that it can kind of be challenging for you to want to launch a social venture or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be without a community to rally around you, but it can still be done. And if you look closely, most of the knowledge is online,
Mm-hmm.
and the resources you can find by understanding your network. So go to meetups, go to networking events,
Mm-hmm.
find out the different community centers that are really supporting this kind of work,
Mm-hmm.
and if there isn't one, maybe consider creating one.
Yeah, that's awesome. So so now bringing the focus back to Houston, because there will eventually, I hope this video is available for those coming in.
Yeah.
Every year we get this group of students, but coming in. So you're building this resource now.
Yeah.
Across Houston, like you said, we've led many organizations, and you're kind of bringing all that together, and that's why it's a hub of information for social innovation ventures. What do you see your next challenge to be as a co-founder, as a team member, what is the challenge that you see for Houston, and then what is the opportunity for Houston? I mean, maybe a little loaded question there.
Yeah. So I think that the thing that Houston could really focus on and work on, there's a couple things. One is, I'll give you a couple.
Okay.
One, I think we can do a better job of diversity and inclusion and entrepreneurship, and that's super important. I think different organizations are focused on very different things, but I think that there's room to be better in diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
So that's one. The other thing is general education about what is social entrepreneurship. We still have a long way to go in Houston about educating up, whether it be foundations or different organizations that might be willing to fund prospective social entrepreneurs, and also educate the prospective entrepreneurs about the toolkit and skills necessary for you to launch a social venture. And then I think finally the other challenge is going to be just really building powerful community. I think that hubs require beautiful, vibrant, thoughtful, intentional community, and that doesn't happen just by being absent-minded about it or not being thoughtful about how it's being constructed. So we're going to be doing a lot of work to make sure that our community is really vibrant and thriving and is supporting and meeting entrepreneurs where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's going to look like it's going to be individually different for every single entrepreneur who's in our hub. So to be truly personalized, truly meaningful, you're going to come in with different mindsets, different perspectives, and we want to make sure that your experience with Impact Hub is strong. So deep focus on community.
No, but that requires a very special passion.
And I think that we have people on our team who get community.
Okay.
And I think that that's maybe where I think a lot of other we don't really think of ourselves like a co-working space. We think of ourselves as like a community center where you can learn and be a part of something bigger than yourself, and a place where people are problem solving and trying to figure out how we make Houston better, how we make our world better. So we care more about like that experience that you have with us, and also like what you're coming away with. What are you learning, right? So workshops, programming, meetups are all very important to us. And the space is sort of a vehicle by which we grow that capacity and we grow that community. But the space isn't like what we're focused on. It's not what we deeply care about. It's a vehicle. Yeah.
So to paraphrase what you said, to me, you've said it's important because this is kind of, we don't think about this when you're in school, but you are the leader of the future, right? There will be a time when you will be looking to work for an industry and then realize that the job that you're being trained on doesn't exist.
Much sooner than I think we all are anticipating.
So you're going to have to think about these problems for the population that's here. There will be a time when your water could cost more than anything your food. If we don't figure out better sustainable ways, there will be a time when going outdoors and enjoying nature may not be possible because of smog in the city from all the traditional manufacturing industrial companies out there. So these problems are happening faster than ever. But by the time you as a student in the city go out and try to make a difference, you need to be thinking about these things, because
Yeah.
it's not a cool thing to say that I'm an entrepreneur today, but the skills of being an entrepreneur are super important, like problem solving, creative thinking, creativity, um, and thinking about making an impact. So that way your work has a meaning. You're not just doing the robot job, because if you are, then guess what? Robots are already doing it better than you.
Yeah.
So knowing about other humans and empathy, diversity, inclusion that you said, I think that's a great way to say you need to be thinking about this stuff. You need to be caring about this stuff now, because by the time it's 1 decade, 2 decade out, you don't want to be on the other end where you're frustrated that you don't have the accounting degrees are going to be challenged with all this online education, online automation with bookkeeping, medical degrees, lawyers. Google can faster, much quickly solve problems for lawyers today. What used to take 8 hours can now take 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So you have to be thinking about this stuff. And man, the question came and it popped out, but it goes away so fast.
You can see the.
No, it comes and then it goes away, and we didn't plan this out really well, because I should have had a laptop right here that had all the questions. But someone,
We're doing our best, yeah.
someone, Candy had just asked about the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program,
And there's actually a student in the class who's a part of that.
he's volunteering for them.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, so it's Candy. Yeah, so he had asked a question. Candy, I'm so sorry. It's popped up and it's gone on my list there. It went so fast. So what we'll do, though, I think, Shiroy, to do justice, is we'll read the whole transcript. I don't want to lose my screen here, so I was waiting for the pop-up, but then it went away. We'll answer those questions after the short break. So if what we'll do is we'll pause the stream, we'll look at the questions, and then we'll redo the stream on the same channel. So if you're watching, just look for part 2 of this going live in a few minutes, and that way we can answer your questions, and then we'll wrap this up. And this becomes part of something that we can use for the pitch competition, but also what you've been teaching our students, just a more formal, personal level than what the textbook example, right? It's what you know. So we'll take a break and we'll come back. And just hang tight on the channel. You're going to see another video going live, so you can just refresh it. And what we can do is we can also make the link available by sharing it. So if you follow Utata, then you'll see it from her. Okay. So thank you and hang tight. Oops, I zoomed into you.
Catching my stumble.